Good afternoon. It's always, sorry I'm a bit fluey. I've just come from Nelspruit and the weather was actually very, very bad. So it's always bad, it's always not a good idea to go last and to agree to be last in the program because there's always the abnormalities of having to now cut and to be conscious of time. But I'll try and be as brief as possible. When I was asked to specifically give some input on creating a culture of reading, I said, where do I start? Because if I were to do that, I would have to take the whole day, because that is exactly what we as Nalibali do. Nalibali is a Xhosa word which simply means he has a story, and we are a national Reading for Enjoyment campaign which is aimed at sparking children's potential through storytelling and reading. It was launched in 2012 by the Project for Alternative Education, which is PRAISA in South Africa, in collaboration with DG Marais Trust, which is one of our major funders that we have as Nalibali. Once again, there's no way we can start to talk about literacy issues or talk about creating cultures of reading if we don't start at this point. And I'm sure we all know this point, so I'm not going to go too much into it because of time. Simply, assessment was done among 50 countries. South Africa performed the worst. 8 out of 10 children cannot read understanding, etc., etc., etc. The whole shebang, we know that, right? When we continue this, we need to then say, what is the state of literacy in our country? We have libraries that look like that. We have libraries that look like that. And these are the libraries in our schools, am I correct? Yes. And if you see that, one of the key things that I want to emphasize here is that if you look at the blue books, what are those blue books? The workbooks in those books. But it's important for us to then go back and say, of what benefit are those blue books? Because the Pearl study clearly told us that 8 out of 10 children cannot read with understanding. So who are we stocking these books up for in our storerooms? Because they will continue to be stocked up. As long as we don't move from the point of saying, how do we get those 8 out of 10 children to progress from children who don't love to read, who don't understand the importance of reading, and who don't appreciate and don't understand why it's important to read, then we will continue to fail. Very few books exist in African languages. There was a question that was raised here around whether children should read isiZulu or not. At Nalibali, we promote multilingualism. And we have a beautiful resource which we call the supplement. And a supplement is basically like a newspaper which has 4 stories in each edition in 2 languages. So in each supplement you'd have 4 stories. If you are in KZN, the story would be in English and isiZulu. So the very same story, Cinderella, would be written in English and in isiZulu, and you'd have 4 stories per supplement. So we are saying that one of the things that we need to also try and emphasize at all times is how do we ensure that we promote African culture and African language, because we feel that it's important for a child to learn in their home language, but then someone would say, what if my home language is Hindi? Just an example, I was at a seminar, a library seminar, and a teacher said, when we raised the question, we raised the issue about African languages, and he said, but we are from Africa as well, and our home language is Hindi, so we're saying that we must also promote that. So that's a discussion for another day altogether. So we'll say there are very few books that exist in African languages, and those books that do exist, most of the times are English books which have been translated in isiZulu, and that's a discussion for another day on the program. Oral stories have been neglected. And this is a huge element of the Nalibali campaign, because we believe that the use of storytelling as a vehicle of ensuring that we demonstrate reading. Remember, reading is not just reading a book, right? And we'll specifically speak about different strategies of reading, of one of them being storytelling. So we're saying, if I were to ask some of you here to think way back, maybe to the first story you might have been told, and who told you that story, etc., etc., most of you might remember. But then if I were to say to you, think of the first book you read in school, very few of you will remember. And the question would be, very few, there are some, like Mr. Conklin that would remember, but very few would. And you know why? Because when oral stories were told, they were told out of love. And there was an excitement of us wanting, of our parents, let me to say as us, like as us. You see, what happened in those days, we knew that at a certain time, Grandpa's coming home and Grandpa tells us stories, right? We didn't have to still wait to be called to come. Now these days, children only run to TV, multimedia, right? Rushing to watch Generations, running to watch Seven the Land, right? So we need to say, how do we go back to the times of oral stories and telling oral stories, and we speak more about storytelling as we go on. So what I'm basically saying is that storybooks are viewed as supplementary to textbooks. Based on the premise that I was saying, children can't read, so we need to prioritize storybooks instead of textbooks, so that the children will be able to read the textbooks, they'll prioritize storybooks. Then the question comes in, and an issue Smangela spoke about as well. She said that's a school management issue for another day. Because as you all sit here, you are the reason why this exists. You are the reason why this exists. And it's simply because we are not advocating enough as educators to say that when our budgets come for textbooks, there's allocations in the budget for storybooks. But we are not emphasizing the fact to our SMTs, we need storybooks because our children can't read. What are we stocking up all of these textbooks for? So we are the reason why we are faced with that situation. So storybooks need to be a primary decision that we take, and textbooks would then need to be secondary. We go on, and I can go on around the crisis, the literacy crisis. If you look at in the bubble on the left, on the my far left, that is what it was saying in 2016. And 2017, it gave us a completely different picture. It said in 2016, 58% of grade 4 learners cannot read understanding. But in 2017, it said 78. So there's been a huge shift. Most children in South Africa have to learn to read in a language they don't understand. Fortunately, some schools, I speak mainly specifically about the black schools. In grade 1 foundation phase, they're grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, they are taught in mother tongue. Grade 4, you need to shift and change to English. Now the level, I don't want to even get into the discussion because it's now a political issue. And we don't want to say what the government is doing incorrectly, but let's move on and say how do we correct those issues. Most children have to learn to read without ever having cuddled up and heard a story. Political issue, let's not get into that as well. Most schools do not have libraries, and when they do, they are barely equipped. And that is a sad reality. That we say to ourselves, we want to create a culture of reading and writing, but how are we going to create a culture of reading if we don't have books to read? Yes, we can do the other activities of storytelling, which could help. We could do songs and games and those kind of things, but it's important for us to say, what can we then do to enhance the libraries and ensure that our schools have libraries? How do we advocate and ensure that all of them? She bang, done, let's go. Now the key for us is always to say, how do we go about creating a conducive environment for learning to happen. Because we believe that the only way we're going to create a culture of reading is if we ensure that the environment in which these children are expected to read is conducive. Because we clearly believe it begins from a place of enjoyment and playfulness and personal relevance. Only at that time will real learning begin. Just as Mangela said, she said something about playing. It's very important to also know that children learn the easiest through playing. So some of the strategies that we would use at Nalibali is we use songs and games and fun. So we play games, but out of those games they'll be learning. For example, we'll sing a song, we'll play a song, we say, there is a fire on the mountain, run, run. There is a fire on the mountain, run, run. And let's say, for example, on that day, we want to teach mathematics, timetables, and we say that we want to teach the 3 timetables, right? So we'll say, there's a fire on the mountain, run, run, fire on the mountain, run, run. Then we'll say, in 3s. And then they'll run and grab in groups of 3s. And then you count, okay, 3 times 1, 3 times 2, 2 times 3, etc., etc. So through songs and games and fun activities, learning happens out of that. We help to create conditions for a culture of reading to flourish. Why do we do this? It's because we believe that a well-established culture of reading is the only true game changer for the education situation in our country. How do we do this? 1, we produce and source and share great stories in all official languages. That is through the supplement that I spoke about. We have a high-powered media campaign that we have, and we have these huge events. Like recently, we had World Read Aloud Day, and I'm sure some of us were involved in that. We have Story Bosso Week, we had Literacy Week and those kind of things. So we have these huge events that we have, these mass media events. And what we specifically then do is use the mass media platforms to create an awareness around the importance of reading and the importance of getting people who would be part of the movement that we have. And I was happy to say here today, when in this group I have someone who is an ambassador of Nalibali, a Funda leader. We have a Funda leader campaign, and our Funda leader campaign is simply a campaign that says, I've identified the crisis of our literacy space, and I want to be a part of it. I want to contribute to it. And we have one ambassador here today. I was excited when she came to me and she showed me a phone. She said, see, I'm a Funda leader, and I was excited. So the most important thing that we do is we help to initiate, support, and sustain reading clubs. So we say, how do we create this culture of reading? We say, let us create reading clubs. Let us have a buzz of reading clubs in every space that we can. In our homes, through our Story-Powered Homes program. In our schools, through our reading club programs. I think it's important for me to say as well at this point is that we have a national agreement with the Department of Education where we are responsible for the training of Department of Education officials on the establishment of reading clubs. And as you would all know, that it's a requirement of the Department of Education that every school needs to have reading clubs. Am I correct? Okay, let me emphasize that. Maybe we didn't know that, maybe our principals didn't tell us. It is a requirement from the Department of Education that every single school needs to have reading clubs. Needs to have a reading club, a reading program, specifically in this school. Right? Okay, right. Okay, a reading program, reading clubs, whatever, okay? So, we have a reading program. So, in terms of when we say, maybe let me ask a question. Who has a reading program in your school? What does it entail?
Every Tuesday, it's 7:30. Everyone will read it, start reading. Every Tuesday. It's 7:30.
Anyone else?
It's an initiative that was initiated by the CNC. And so it is like basically mandatory for all of them to follow. And at the launch of the program this year, each school actually elect a reading ambassador. So over and above that Tuesday morning period, the reading ambassadors have to do other projects at school to inculcate the reading.
That's it. I like that. Other activities, so it's bigger than just the reading that happens. Okay, ma'am?
We have from Monday to Thursday, we have from 7:30 to 8 o'clock. And what we do in the foundation phase, the teachers have established their own readers, where the children, either the teachers read with them, or they read it individually, or they read it as a class. And in the senior primary, they have children who facilitate the reading in each class. So, yeah, but it's from Monday to Thursday, it's a set program.
Okay,
from the time.
let us give them a yeah. And all of those who are not reading, let's give them a yeah, because we know they're going to go back and do it. Yeah. Right? So, remember, now we all know that it's mandatory, am I correct? So if it's not happening in your school, you go back and you ask your principal, why isn't this happening in our school? Because it's mandatory. So we go in and then, as part of our partnership with the Department of Education, we train teachers on how to establish reading clubs. It's a 2-day program, so we come in, we give a 2-day training, we train you on how to establish reading clubs, we train you on how to sustain reading clubs, and we also provide mentorship and support from time to time. Based on capacity, unfortunately, we don't have as many field staff because of funding issues. We are unable to provide mentorship all the time, but we provide that mentorship that we are able to provide. So we establish reading clubs, sustain, and we ensure that we promote literacy through those reading clubs. We offer tips and advice, etc., etc. Where do you fit in? Now, in order for you to create a culture, right? Smart spoke about all of those things, but I think the most important one for me is the last one that I wrote in capital, is that if educators do not understand that reading cuts across all core curriculum, we will continue to have the scourge that we have. Because in no way can you expect a child to solve a math problem if they cannot really understand the question. In no way can you ask a child to discuss a social science topic if he or she cannot really understand the topic. Right? I would go in and give examples of when I was very quickly. I was invigilating a couple of years ago at a school in Newcastle where I used to be on the SGB. And whilst invigilating, it was history examination, and the question was discuss, analyze, right, and differentiate, right? Grade 12. Discuss and differentiate between the 1976 uprising, right, and World War II. Right? Now, we know in our schools, before we write exam, the teachers prep us and they say, okay, we're going to get, this is your essay question, you're going to get this essay question, you can learn this essay question. So the children, when they saw World War II, they just started to write about World War II. When they saw 1976 uprising, some of those decided I'm going to write about 1976 uprising, but that wasn't the question. And the challenge is it's because they did not know they did not understand what the question was. Right? I'm going on and on in the tangent, let me continue. But it's important also to understand that if we want to create a culture of reading, we need to ensure that it's participatory. We need to ensure that it's inspirational, it's fun, and I can never overemphasize the fun element. It needs to be fun. Because we believe that when you enjoy something, right, you learn better, right? So a child that enjoys reading will read more because they enjoy reading. And when you start to read more, all of the shebang issues that we're experiencing won't be issues anymore, right? I'm going on and on. It needs to be inclusive and it needs to be purposeful. Why is creating a reading culture significant? It's significant because we believe that if children who don't learn to read in primary school cannot become adequately educated, because we'll continue to have those grade 12 children failing in grade 12 because we fail to address those issues in foundation phase. So how do we strengthen that in foundation phase? That's the key question. Enabling a culture of reading refers to regular use of reading and writing for various reasons that happen on a daily basis, right? Because we know that people read and write when they have good reasons to do so. And we also know that a good reason is always one where the person who is doing the reading or the writing achieves something personally meaningful from it. Our approach is that children learn concept through doing, children learn to write as they write, and children learn to read as they read. Right? And the question that you always ask yourself, you say to yourself as a teacher, how do I help a child who's struggling? Remember, the stuttering, the paraphrasing, the reading of breaking down of words or stages, just like even in writing. You don't just get someone who writes, the child starts to scribbling stage, you start scribbling first, then you scribble and you write letters, then you start to write words, then you start to write sentences. You don't just get up and you start to write sentences. So, excuse me. You don't just start writing sentences. So it's important for us to know that the only way children will know to read is if they learn to read. Reading for enjoyment. Spoke about this. Stephen Kroshen says, young people who do not enjoy reading, who do not read very often, and who perhaps as a result do not have good attitudes towards reading are more likely to miss out on the benefits, including better skills and better life opportunities. Reading for enjoyment, drop everything and read, etc., etc. I won't go through all of that. There's some of the stuff that Smart spoke about somewhere, somehow. Now, why reading for enjoyment? We believe that through reading for enjoyment, it sparks interest in children. Reading for enjoyment brings about excitement. Reading for enjoyment enhances children's imagination. It inspires. Once we are able to get those things, it then changes the reading attitudes of children. To become children who would then start reading more. And once that happens, we then change the reading behavior of children. Because I'm now reading more, I now start selecting my book. Remember, Smart also spoke about the fact to say that when books are forced upon you, selection, choice, your own choice. It's important as well that at some stage, children get to a stage where they want to be choosing their own books. And once we are able to then change the reading behavior, reading attainment is achieved. I go through all of that. I can share my presentation with everyone, that's fine. Why is choice important? Smart spoke about this as well. Motivate kids to love to read, because passion is a big part of why we read. Etc. Let's continue. How do we create a culture of reading? Firstly, the establishment of reading clubs. Key. We need an intervention that will be there, an intervention that is sustained, intervention where we will be able to gauge and check progress. Those are the different elements of reading clubs, right? Continued activations. You spoke about before school, in the assembly, read aloud in the assembly. On a certain day, maybe you invite a storyteller to come and tell a story. During school, over the PA system, you'd have activities. So we're saying, coupled with the reading club, we need to always ensure that there's continued activation within the school. We need to keep, if we want to creating a culture. When we say creating a culture, what are we talking about? Everyone wants to be part of, right? So if we say we want to create a culture, we're saying that we want to create something that everyone's going to want to be part of. So they'll only want to be part of it if it's always in their face, right? So we continuously need to ensure that we're activating the school. And most importantly, a structured school reading and writing program. Now these are just elements of what exists in terms of the Department of Education's programs. Reading clubs, Reading clubs has now become an integral part of, it forms part of special programs in one of the directors in Department of Education, to the extent that there's now going to be reading club competitions. Something like what we have Spelling Bee, we have Readathon, we have the Readers' Cup. So now the department then said we will now have reading club competitions, right? So that's up to you guys to say to your district officials, because they've been trained already, we've trained them, to say when are these things coming to our schools, right? So we're saying that let us have a structured program. And I think at the foundation of all of this, let us try and establish a reading and writing committee in our schools, a committee that will facilitate the processes of ensuring that we are able to create a culture of reading and writing. Reading for enjoyment strategies, reading aloud, paired reading, silent reading, storytelling, writing, songs and games, arts and crafts, but I have a problem with the silent reading. Because you'd never know if the child really is. Yes, it's a strategy, a reading for enjoyment strategy, but I personally have a problem. I always tell them at work and I say, why do we say that this is one of our strategies? Because you'll never be able to know if the child is really reading. But discussion for another day. Okay, and then our packages. We have modular training package. Our first package is we come in and we would come in and we discuss and talk about what Nalibali is. Module 1, which is a 3-hour training program. We then do module 2, which is be a fully. We say we've introduced Nalibali to you. We now want you to be a part of the social movement, because Nalibali is about creating a social movement, right? We're not worried about sustaining a partnership with possibilities, Partners for Possibilities or Help to Read. We want to create a social movement so that everybody, everywhere, outside of Help to Read, outside of Partners for Possibilities, that would ensure that when Smangela says, unfortunately this month we received notification from our funding that we don't have any funding anymore, that the program continues. So that is why we say we want to create a social movement where we have hundreds and thousands of Funda leaders out there who are fighting, who are assisting in addressing the literacy crisis that we experience in South Africa. We then come into module 3, where we do a solid two-day training on establishing reading clubs, sustaining reading clubs, and we train you and we do reading club demonstrations as well. And then module 4 is train the trainer. We believe that we have to ensure that the school has the ability to then roll out training on their own at any stage, so we train you as trainers. And then we have continued mentorship and support. With that said, I thank you.